Welcome to Streets and Eats, the podcast where we want to inspire your next trip by telling you about some fantastic destinations and the best food to eat while you're there. At this time, I think it's difficult to travel to Japan, but we're missing Japanese food big time. So we wanted to tell you about our top 10 dishes that you can eat in Japan without breaking the bank. And they're famous and they're popular and you're going to love them. And the great thing about them is almost all of them, if not all of them, you can also find in the U.S. So if you're like us and you're missing these dishes or you want to try them for the first time, you can look at your closest Japanese restaurant and see if they offer these staples.
All right, so the first one you've got to try, and top of everybody's list, is ramen. That big hearty bowl of noodles and that rich broth, and any topping you want to put into it is going to be great. But I really love it with roast pork and like a semi-medium or soft-boiled egg.
Okay, I'm going to be honest here. After living in Japan for 5 years, I had not really got a hankering or a love for ramen at first.
It took you a while.
It took me a while.
You never wanted it.
I never wanted it. And it was like twisting my arm backwards and forwards before Jim could get me to sit down at a ramen restaurant. Now, don't get me wrong. Every time I did, I liked it. But it just didn't call out to me until one day. One day.
Well, they don't give Michelin stars for nothing.
We went to a Michelin starred ramen restaurant in Tokyo.
Nakiryu.
It
is the best ramen on earth.
It's orgasmic. Am I allowed to say that? It is say that. Delicious.
It's very good.
So when you get to Nakiryu, you pretty much have to stand outside and wait for at least an hour.
Right. It's a really typical, in a way, it's a typical ramen stand where it's only got
10 seats.
The bar with 10 seats around it and the chef or chefs, the cooks behind the bar making everything right there in front of you. So it's tiny, but it's popular.
Well, they're not making it because the broth has had to sit for hours and hours and hours.
They're assembling it.
They're definitely assembling it in front of you. But anyway, it's the kind of broth that it is I think it derives itself from China. It's a tantan men, and it's a little spicier.
It's richer.
I don't know what it is.
It's got a bone broth base and sesame oil and some red chili flake. I'm sure there's some fish in there somewhere.
I went from not really loving ramen to salivating when you said the word ramen craving it and having to go and stand in that line because it was that good.
Well, I think the problem that most people have with ramen is when they think of ramen, they think of what? Top ramen. You know, that's what we grew up with as far as any type of noodle soup. As ramen is you buy it in the supermarkets. There's little bricks and you boil it and you put the little packet broth in there. And no, that's not ramen.
It's not ramen. It's not.
Ramen, like you said, should have an amazing broth that's taken hours to make. And it's not just a little packet you dump in the bowl.
No, it's not a little.
But there's all kinds of different. There's miso broth base,
which is good.
Which is one of my favorites. If I can't get the Nakiryu tantan men, then I would probably go with the miso. And if I can get a spicy miso, that's even better. Shoyu, soy sauce based, or tonkotsu or gyokotsu, beef or pork or beef bone broth, which one of the best bowls of ramen I had outside of Nakiryu was a beef bone broth.
Where was that? That was fun. That was after I was deathly ill.
Yeah.
Didn't go with you.
That was over on the Sea of Japan side, on the coast over there. And it was delicious. I just walked in.
It was just in this little town right on the coast.
6 seats in the place.
Yeah. Couldn't read a thing. No one spoke English. You didn't need to. One thing that's a little confusing about ramen restaurants is that the way you have to go in and order. So you usually have to stand in line a lot of times for ramen restaurants. Like Jim said, there's only a few seats.
Just to get to the door.
Just to get to the door. But once you go in, they don't really want to deal with your cash. Even before the pandemic, they didn't want to deal with cash. They don't want to deal with adding your stuff up.
Taking your order.
None of that. So what you do is they have a machine, a punch machine, button
Ticket
machine. That you say, okay, I want a bowl of ramen. Oh, I want extra noodles. Oh, I want corn. Oh, I want
garlic,
bean sprouts, garlic,
roast pork.
Roasted pork,
coriander.
Oh gosh, I can't even go through all the different
So many
choices. Spicy, not spicy.
Egg.
Oh, my favorite, the shoyu egg, which has been marinated in. It's a hard-boiled egg, or almost hard. Marinated in some soy sauce and whatever goodness. And, I could eat those.
Float that right in that ramen.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So
delicious.
good. Anyway, so you go in and that's the way you pay. And what's nice about ramen is you're only going to pay about 1,000 yen per bowl.
Right.
Sometimes you can pay a little bit more than that depending on how many things you get on your ramen. And a lot of times, you can get away with only paying like 600 yen.
Right.
Because, it
For a
comes
good
with
bowl.
it, or it's on sale, or who knows. And the other nice thing about ramen is you're not going to walk more than, I would say, 2 blocks
It's everywhere.
without finding a ramen place. They're literally everywhere.
But if you're in Tokyo, make the effort to go to Nakiryu, I would say.
Yeah, I think Nakiryu, but
If you can't get in there,
down,
though,
it's our
if
favorite.
you can't get in there, don't give up on ramen. You're going to find good ramen.
Yeah. There's also, if you go to the Tokyo main train station, there's a whole floor that has revolving good ramen from around the city, and it changes up every year. And there's 8 different restaurants in there. So you can go in on, and try it 8 days in a row and try a different restaurant's ramen right there at the Tokyo train station if you're nearby.
I could eat ramen 8 days in a row.
I don't know if I could, but I might be able to eat Nakiryu 8 days in a row.
But another good way to do it is to go to the ramen museum
in Yokohama. Which is only about a 20-minute ride from the Tokyo main station.
Themed. I think they've taken like a warehouse and turned it into this whole, walking through back alleys, and just they've done a really good job of decorating the place. So you feel like you're in really old Japan.
Old Japan alleyways.
And they're each of the different parts of it are different regions of Japan, and you can get the ramen from that region because they're specialized all throughout Japan, even though it's basically a noodle dish. And what I really like about the Yokohama Ramen Museum is that you can buy half bowls there, because there's no way you could go and eat more than one full bowl of ramen in a
there's no way
afternoon. There's just no way.
Yeah, but this way you can try different
But here
ones.
you could try at least 2. And if you've got another person with you, you could each order a different one. Try those, a half bowl. And if you liked that and you still wanted more, go get more half bowls and more half bowls. And no.
And the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Well, and finally, the last thing about Nakiryu ramen that I'll mention is that 7-Eleven in Japan has this program where they have specialized ramen, instant ramen in a bowl ready to add hot water.
It's top ramen with a kick, like
top
luxury.
Top ramen.
Top shelf top ramen.
Yeah. And Nakiryu is one that they have, and I would buy that stuff up. And
He
just
did.
store it
I'm not
forever.
kidding. We'd go to work and we'd have to stop at the 7-Eleven in the morning because he's out of ramen at work. And we'd have to go in, check in the shelves, and this one's empty, so we'd have to go to the next 7-Eleven.
Well, and I would have it at school for lunch in my room, and my kids would come back from lunch. Jealous. Mr. Vale, what have you been eating? You've been having the ramen again. Oh, it's not fair. Anyway, it's delicious.
It is really, really delicious. And like we said, it's ubiquitous. You can get it anywhere. You aren't paying much for it. And you get it to your own liking.
Yeah.
So you just can't go wrong with a bowl of ramen.
You really can't.
You just can't. Okay, well, believe it or not, there's other places and other things to eat other than ramen.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
The second thing that we just love, and I think people know about this a lot more maybe than they realize about ramen, but is tempura. I think tempura is something that's not that hard to get in the United States. I don't think it's as good. No. And nothing's ever as good
right.
in a foreign country than the country it was originated in my opinion. But that's okay. It still can be delicious. That's right.
And you can find really good food.
Now, tempura is a little bit different than ramen. Ramen is always pretty much a cheap food. But tempura can be a cheaper food, and it can go up into luxury status.
Yeah.
One of the most expensive Japanese meals you can get is called a kaiseki. And that's a multi-plated meal that goes through the night. Often you can get those at the traditional hotels called a ryokan.
It's kind of like
at a kaiseki restaurant.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tasting menu, a Japanese tasting
menu. It kind of is,
in
a way, but...
in that you're getting a lot of small dishes to try.
But the thing about kaiseki is that it's a very just like most of Japan, a very regimented layering of flavors.
It follows a certain formula of what dish is served when.
And so tempura is often on that menu. So it can get from very inexpensive to very expensive quickly. But you're not typically going to walk off the street into a very expensive restaurant without knowing it.
Right.
Whereas for the cheaper tempura restaurants, I mean, it's very easy to spot them. Just like most things in Japan, they have good pictures on the outside, or they might have the dishes themselves, the plastic food in the front. And one of the chains that we like to go to is called Tendon Tenya. And we lived in Yokosuka. Well, we didn't live in Yokosuka, but we worked in Yokosuka. And so there was one there that we often went to, and we found out it was a chain. Then if we were going for a cheap tempura, we would often look for it, because just like any other chain, it was the same everywhere you went.
And it was good. And it was good value. Good. You got good food for your money. I wouldn't say it was like you were saying, top end tempura, but it was very good and delicious. And
no, in fact, it's a bottom end
cheap
tempura. It's about 1,000 yen to 1,500 yen.
Really affordable.
But
and still good, fresh ingredients.
And you can still pick basically what you wanted to put on there. The tempura restaurants I really like to go to, though, are ones out in the villages where they're just using their local produce, whatever their local produce is, and whatever season it is. We used to go to one, where was that?
Misawa.
Near Mount Fuji, too. Well, there was one in Misawa, and there's one near Mount Fuji.
One in Misawa was right on the edge of a rice field. You practically were sitting over the rice field while you're eating. That was really cool.
Yeah, and they had little fishes in the creek there that they would fish and feed you on with tempura. But the one near we used to go when we went to Mount Fuji was in that little town by the lake, Lake Kawaguchiko.
Yes.
And I like that one.
That was Ninja.
Oh, it was called
tempura.
Ninja Tempura. You're right. And I've taken almost everybody who comes to visit me, I would take them there, because you would get a set, and the set would be, I think the basic set was 1,060 yen or something like that. So right around $10. But then on the back of the menu, it had, your eggplant and your fish and your mushrooms and your vegetables, your shea leaves, your pumpkin, okra, squid, carrot, anything you could imagine to put on it, you could buy individually for like 100 yen or 200 yen.
So you can add it to
a set. You could have the basic set and then add that to it, or you could just buy those and build your own to begin with. But you always have to have rice with the sauce. So
yeah, although Tendon Tenya also had it where you could get soba noodles in your set.
Yeah, because tempura is often paired with soba noodles.
But more likely you'd get it with a bowl of rice. And so what you do is you take your piece of tempura, whatever it is, and it's always served with a bowl of tempura sauce. I think it's called tentsuyu, which is like a dashi soy mirin broth. And so you dip your piece of tempura in it, and you quickly take it from the sauce to your bowl of rice and just rest it on your rice for a minute while I rearrange my chopsticks and make sure I'm going to get it into my mouth without dropping anything. And then you eat the tempura and you just keep doing that. And what happens is you get the drippings from the broth and the flavor of the tempura that all mixes into your rice. And then you eat the rice like that, and it's super
Well, I also
delicious.
pour the rest of mine in my rice.
Or add the sauce to the rice.
Because the sauce is so yummy. Anyway, so tempura is one of our favorite things. And the good thing about tempura is I've never, well, all of these dishes that we've picked, you can't go anywhere and not find it.
Yeah. You're going to find it everywhere, and it's going to be good everywhere.
Yeah. And you can't go wrong.
And it is fried food. I mean, we should say that up top. It's battered and then fried. But it's not like a deep fried, like a southern deep fried.
And it always has pickles.
Yeah.
Japanese pickles, which are very good. It's just,
It's that really rich umami flavor.
Yes, it is.
Delicious. So what's next? Next up, you can't talk about Japanese food and not talk about curry.
And which is surprising because I don't think people think of Japan and automatically think of curry. When you think of curry, you think of
India,
Southeast Asia,
Pakistan,
or India, or Pakistan or whatever. But in Japan, they make an amazing curry. I tried making it from scratch. It is pretty intense.
Yeah, there's a lot of ingredients in a good curry.
Surprisingly, it's intense. But what they've done,
apple,
they have it
garlic.
for lunch. The moms make it for their kids at least minimum once a week. And I thought to myself, how are they going to, there's no way they're going to make this from scratch. But you do have the Japanese curry cubes, and those work really well
and they're
too.
very good.
We've used those. But to go out for dinner and have curry, they have it in every kind of restaurant you can imagine. But then they also have Koko Ichibanyu Curry, which is a restaurant specifically for curry. Curry, and maybe a little bit more curry.
And it's a chain too.
It's also a chain. It's not to be confused with the overarching Koko restaurants that are...
Coco's is more like a family restaurant.
It's more like a Denny's or a
They would
Applebee's.
call it a Western restaurant, even though most of it doesn't.
Most of the stuff doesn't look Western
to
at all.
us.
But you're right, that is exactly what they call it, a Western restaurant.
But Koko curry is just curry, like you said. And they have the basic pork-based gravy curry, which is generally fairly spicy. But the good thing about Koko curry is everything is customizable.
Yes.
Is that a word?
You get to pick it. You get to eat it the way you want it.
Yeah.
And what's hard, though, is finding out how you want it.
Yeah.
Because there are so many
But that's
options.
okay if you have to go back a few times.
The menu at Koko Curry's is pages long.
It's intense.
It's intense. And they do have English menus. Make sure you ask for an English menu. And even where they might not have a full English menu, which I can't imagine. But even if you did find that, they have English on the Japanese menus, sort of just a few words.
Yeah.
You can't, and they also have pictures. So between the pictures and the English, I'm pretty sure everybody can figure it out.
And so you have to pick, first of all, you have to pick how much rice do you want? Do you want 100 grams, 200 grams, 300 grams?
And you can just say normal, which is
And you can get everything
grams.
normal all the way through. But you're going to want to change something up at least.
Well, here's the thing. They realize that people don't know how to do it. So if you go in there and you just say you want one curry and they start asking you questions and you give them blank looks in return, they're going to give you 100 grams of rice with some curry sauce and probably...
a medium spice level.
Well, low or medium spice level. And probably they're going to serve it with... They might ask you chicken or pork or something, right. Or they'll just give you a tonkatsu, a pork. I don't know.
That's pretty standard.
But that's got to be as basic as you can get it.
And you can just pick one that's got, like you said, it's got the curry and it's got a tonkatsu and rice. And you can point to the picture if nothing else.
Yeah, of course. You can always point to the picture.
But you're going to want to set your spice level. And I think there's like 10 different spice levels you can get. Isn't it like 5 of the mild side and then 5 on the hot side?
I don't know. I always got the same one.
Yeah, I always go for the number 3.
It was delicious.
And then I always add eggplant, spinach, and I usually get a tonkatsu. Different times of the year, they have different types of a breaded pork cutlet that they slice. Sometimes it's the handmade one, and that's the best one.
It is. It's surprisingly that it does change seasonally. So you do want to look at the menu each and every time you go.
Right.
If they have handmade anything, that's the one to pick.
Yeah.
Whether it's the handmade pork or the handmade chicken. They're both very, very good. I used to like to get the spinach because the spinach was interspersed in the sauce. And that really is about the only thing that was like that. But I also love to get the scrambled egg, which sounds kind of strange. But they would have a scrambled egg and they would plop it on top of the curry and the rice. And oh my gosh, I just love that.
Mixes into the curry and it's delicious.
So good. And like Jim said, the eggplant is always good to add, or beans, or you can add so many different things. Devin used to add the garlic, little chopped up dried garlic. So many different choices.
Yeah, be adventurous.
Yeah, try it.
Try it.
Again, it's cheap. I mean, you're not going to walk out of there paying more than probably $15 a person, and you're going to be full.
Yeah, and that's with a drink. And maybe even a salad. It's a good
yeah.
price.
So try Coco Ichibanya curry. And by the way, if you're in Los Angeles area, you can get this.
Oh, yeah.
Los Angeles or San Diego.
San Diego just opened one, and there's going to be one opening in Texas somewhere. I saw that on their website.
In
Frisco,
Texas. Frisco.
Yeah.
All right. So that was number 3. Number 4 is yakitori. Yakitori is grilled chicken. Grilled meat. Grilled meat. And there's all kinds of different, I mean, there's 200 kinds of grilled meat that you can get. Everything from, regular thighs.
Chicken thigh,
and
chicken breast, chicken wing.
Chicken everything. Chicken
gizzard,
cartilage.
chicken skin.
And then, of course, there's pork everything. And then there's beef everything. And there's even vegetarian ones, which are very good as well. So some of the things that we really liked were the chicken ones. The meatballs were really, really good. The tsukune. I liked the chicken gizzards. Jim did not care for that as much. I did not like the
cartilage. Is too crunchy and chewy.
No, I didn't care for that.
The skin I don't much care for either. I really like the basic thigh. And one of the reasons why I like the thigh is that it's interspersed with pieces of leek.
Well, you can get it that way.
So that's my favorite.
Yeah. I was just going to say that too because the leeks are so good grilled.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of sweetness.
So to give you an idea of what how to eat yakitori or where to go, is you look up the word yakitori ya, which means restaurant for yakitori or grilled meat. And as you go in, it's a little smoky usually because it's one big counter, and behind the counter are all these hibachis with charcoal. Sometimes they're electric, but most of them are still charcoal.
You
so
really
it can
want the
get
charcoal
really, really smoky. And sometimes there might be some tables off to the side, but that's not always the case. Usually it's just a counter. Sometimes the counter is larger than others. The first time that I went to a yakitori, I was on a Rotary exchange. This was years ago. And I was with a Japanese businessman who had picked me up with the other group of people on the exchange. And he was taking me home to his wife and kids. But on the way, he said, "Do you want to stop for a snack?" Well, yeah, sure. And a beer. So we stopped at a yakitori. And here I was thrown into a completely Japanese cultural event that may have been the highlight of my trip. And I had a lot of highlights. That was a great trip. But we just sat there, and he ordered for me, and he got me a beer.
I'm sure you were drinking beer.
And it was just so, I just loved every second of it. And the thing about it is, you don't have to have someone take you to do it. The menu is a laminated piece of paper with pictures, so you just point and say, "I want that."
How many do you want?
Once you figure out that you've picked the cartilage, you never have to pick that one again.
Yeah.
And you just keep ordering them. They cost about 100 or 200 yen a stick.
You get, 4, maybe 5 pieces of bite-sized
pieces
meat
on a
each
stick. So you can try different kinds, and you just eat and drink and eat and drink. They used to, and sometimes still do, so you got to be very careful if this is a problem for you, smoke in yakitorias. So But you can tell. I mean, you can tell immediately if it's one where people are smoking or
And you
not.
might want to go somewhere else.
So actually, one of the ones that we went into recently, there were a few smokers, but there were so many other people that you didn't even really notice
Was that in
it.
Toyama?
It was in Toyama. Thank you.
Yes, that was a really good one.
That was a great one.
That one, they had, I would say, 5 cooks, each standing at their own hibachi grill, and it was cool for sure. And they were just slapping on the skewers of meat non-stop. That place was pumping.
They were. And what's
but
nice
it had really
about
good
it is
ventilation, so
you don't
even
have
though
to
the smoke
speak.
was there, you didn't breathe it in.
And you don't have to speak Japanese. You just point. You just say "sumimasen," and that is "excuse me." So they come over, and then you point, and you say, "I want one of those," or "I want 2 of those."
And everybody's just having a great time.
Yeah.
It's just a fun thing to do.
And a lot of times, this has happened to us more than once. A lot of times, the people sitting next to you, they're just so thrilled that you're having a good time
Right.
that they're like, "Try this one next. Try this one next."
one.
So of course you got to try it. Anyway, I highly, highly, highly suggest that you try yakitori. One place that Jim and I found, we live not too far from Yokohama. And Yokohama is a great city, only, like we said before, about 20 minutes from Tokyo. A little further for us because we lived in Kamakura, but so easy to get to from
Everything's
Tokyo.
so easily connected by train.
Yeah. And so what you do is you go to Yokohama and you get off at the Sakuragicho station, and then you take a southwest exit, and there's whole streets of izakayas, which is a bar or restaurant type idea, and yakitorias.
These little tiny little
Yeah, they're all small.
restaurant.
And the whole idea is that you sort of wander and have your
Try
beer.
the sake here,
Try,
have
yeah.
a beer there, have a couple of yakitoris here,
You
get
know.
a bowl of ramen if you're really hungry still.
And when it's a hot, sizzly summer night and the humidity is high and you're just sweating out of every pore, it really is a lot of fun to walk up and down those streets. It's just a
The
great.
sun goes down. And
It makes
starts
you
to
feel
cool off
like
a
you're
little bit.
doing something different, which I don't know. For me, that's what
You're
traveling's
in
all
Japan
about.
at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah, that's a great area. So the next food we're going to talk about is something that you're, I think, mainly going to find as a street food or a festival food, and that's a takoyaki.
It's our number 5.
It's number 5. That's an octopus. We call them octopus balls. It's more like a dumpling. And you'll see these and you'll know what they are right away.
Because the truck always has a picture of a
Picture of an
octopus
octopus on it. And what they do is they have a cup. It's a small, like a golf ball shaped cup. Actually, it's bigger than a golf ball because they always seem too big when you put it in your mouth.
They're at least 5 bites for me.
So bigger than a golf ball, but smaller than a
Baseball.
baseball.
What's in between there? You guys
Something
tell
in
us.
between.
Racquetball? I don't know.
A pool.
Pool
ball?
We don't know. It's a ball.
So they put batter and octopus and maybe a little bit of cabbage and some other veg.
And then
And
tonkatsu
they cook
sauce
it
over it.
in that cup and they flip it so it keeps the ball shape. And then when they've got it all done, they put it into a packet of usually 6 or 8.
Yeah.
And the ubiquitous squirt of mayonnaise goes over it, and
Tonkatsu.
tonkatsu
or
sauce,
something similar.
and bonita flake, and then you pick it up with your chopsticks, and you, if you can, you put the whole thing in your mouth, and it is hot
It's hot.
and delicious.
And the best time
it's one
to
of my favorite things.
Well, you're going to find these. Sometimes you'll find them in temples when the food, for whatever reason, temples have a lot of street food at different times of the year. So you might find them near a temple, like the Asakusa right there in Tokyo. That's a famous one. And I think there's takoyaki there
all the time.
all the time. So you can be sure to get it there. But you can find them in train stations. They're on the go food, and they're comfort food,
That's
and
street
they're festival food, and they're just one of those foods that you. Oh, there's takoyaki. Oh, look over there,
Get some
takoyaki.
And it's cheap and it's delicious if you like octopus. Even if you don't.
Even if
give it
you
a try.
don't like octopus, I mean, I've never really met anyone who doesn't like takoyaki.
Yeah,
Because the batter, it's just good.
it's a delicious batter. delicious food. It's usually, if they've done it right, the octopus is very tender, and it just kind of, the whole thing just melts in your mouth.
In fact, before you know it, you're up there ordering another batch if you're not careful. So be careful. Yeah. So you should try that while you're there, because I'm sure you'll come across it, as well as any other street food for that matter. Our number 6 is soba. Soba is noodles made from buckwheat. And I think it's one of Jim's and my favorite
Love it.
foods for a number of different reasons. Mainly because we used to work as teachers for the military. So we would be there. We'd get there in the summer and we'd work all year, and then we'd leave in the summer. So we'd always arrive in summer. It was always hot in summer. So here we are arriving in Japan in summertime and just wanting Japanese food. And yet it's hot and it's sticky and it's humid.
So you don't really want anything hot.
And so you're like, oh, I don't really want to go into a hot restaurant. I don't really want to have, this. I mean, even the good foods, they're hot. I don't want to have it. But soba is one of the few foods that they serve cold noodles. And to go into a soba restaurant, it's such a delicious and great thing. You have, a lot of times it's served with tempura as part of the plate. It's usually at a little bit more upscale restaurant, which means you're not going to have a counter. You're going to have tables and chairs. But that doesn't mean it's expensive. I think they start out around 1,800 yen, 2,000 yen. And then just like anything else, you can always add to it. But for 2,200 yen, guaranteed, you can get a whole meal.
A full set.
And it's going to be good. And so the way you eat it is, can you describe it?
Sure. So they serve these long, thin noodles on a bamboo...
Yeah, it's on a bamboo tray.
Bamboo mesh tray. Almost like a basket, really. It is a basket.
It is a basket.
And so you get a pile of noodles, and then they give you a bowl, small little bowl. And in that bowl, you're going to put a little bit of soy sauce and a little bit of wasabi. And then they'll bring out a small, like a teapot full of the broth.
Hot broth.
That has been used for cooking the soba. So it's soba broth. And you mix all that together in the bowl, and then you take some of the cold noodles and you pick them up with your chopsticks. You dip them in the broth and then quickly slurp them down. And it is the most amazing thing you've ever had.
It is divine.
The saltiness from the soy sauce and that sharp tang that you get from the wasabi, and it's just amazing, especially on a hot day. It's so refreshing. There's not much food that you can eat that's refreshing, especially a pasta.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what it is.
I agree. And so when the second time we started living in Japan, we had this idea that we wanted to find out how to make buckwheat soba. Mm. And we found out that in this small town called Minowa, there was a soba festival. Not only was there a soba festival, but that's where some of the buckwheat was grown. So in September, they would have these beautiful red flower buckwheat flowers, and they're just stunningly beautiful.
The whole
Japanese love
field is
flowers.
Just bright and red and beautiful.
Yeah, and so A, we wanted to go and see the fields, and B, we wanted to find out how to make them. So we go through the fields. We picked the worst weekend.
It was rainy and miserable.
It was overcast and misty, and the mountain. I mean, in some ways it's pretty, but in a way it's kind of miserable. We're trying to take photos with our tripod. We're getting soaked. We had a good time. Yeah. But we ended up spending a couple hours out in the flower fields, and then we went to the town hall. This was the cutest festival. We were the only gaijin, the only foreigners, probably for miles and miles and miles around. And who knows for how many years in a row had it been without gaijin.
It's a very small festival.
It was a small festival.
But they're excited to see us. They were excited to see everybody.
Yeah,
but they really wanted to show it off for us. So we got the grand tour. And there was 3 or 4 soba masters in there going through the whole stage, so you could see from where they would take the buckwheat flour and start mixing it with the water, and the whole process of kneading it and rolling it, and how many times you have to roll it out, fold it in the exact precise manner, roll it again, and they do that like 10 or 20 times, And then once you get it to the right size, you fold it and roll it, and then you slice it with a soba noodle slicing knife.
Specifically.
Yeah, that's never been used for anything else. And then they cook it up there for you, and they serve it just like I said earlier, with a little bowl of soy sauce. And
do you remember
wasabi
they had 2 tickets? You could buy
yes, you could
a
get
green
it hot
ticket.
or cold.
Oh, it was a hot or cold.
Yeah, which is another good thing about soba. If you're there in the wintertime, you might not want to have the cold noodles, although they're good all year long.
I don't think we hardly ever ate soba hot because we just love it so much cold.
Yeah, and if I'm going to get a bowl of noodles, a noodle soup like that in Japan, it would be a ramen before I would get a soba. Because I like the soba noodles cold. They're good hot too, but... And really, it always comes down to the broth. If it's a delicious broth, it doesn't really matter what's in it. It's gonna be good.
And you can always tell a small town festival for a lot of reasons. I mean, everybody knows each other, and they know that you're the foreigner.
That you're not from there.
That you're not from there. But they always have a few little booths outside. So remember, we bought potatoes from the school kids.
They were the best potatoes.
They were the best potatoes. We wish we'd gone back there every time. But anyway.
Another really good soba restaurant was in Kyoto. No.
Oh, no. In Nara.
No, in Nara, yeah.
Actually, I think that's where we first fell in love with them.
In the temple
area.
Park area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cute little small restaurant.
She had beautiful, like a driftwood tables that had been shaped. And it was just a beautiful place. Of course, you had to sit on the floor. You were on your knees there, weren't you? Or was it... Did they have wells that you could put your feet into?
I think they had benches. I think you're getting confused with other places we've been. But anyway, he's right about one thing.
And their broth was the best.
Yeah, they had... And also they had the cute little English description on how you eat the noodle with the broth and everything.
For those of us that didn't know how.
Which we were definitely among that group. We had to learn, like everybody does. Anyway, it's absolutely, by far... one of our favorite things to eat. And not only do we think you should try it if you go, but if you happen to be there in September, look up that Minoa festival and see if you can go to that. Cause
it's out in the Nagano area.
It's not far from Matsumoto.
Matsumoto, which has a beautiful castle.
And, you would want to go there too. So number 7. Number 7 is okonomiyaki. Misinterpretedly called Japanese pancakes. First of all, I don't know how it got that name.
Well, it's round. It has a batter. It's cooked with a batter.
And
you
cook
it
on a grill.
On a grill.
I mean, okay, I know how it got the name.
That's where the comparison
stops. It doesn't taste anything like a Japanese pancake.
Or any pancake.
Or any pancake, for that matter. It's delicious,
Yeah, it is a batter, so it's got a batter. But in that batter, you're also going to put fish, cabbage, onion.
Well, you don't have to have fish. You could have chicken. You could have pork.
You could have mixed all of them.
I think the
you
original...
could have a vegetarian.
Yeah, the Japanese love fish. So the first time I had okonomiyaki was up in Hokkaido when I was there on a Girl Scout exchange. I've been to Japan many, many times. And so they made it for us, and they picked seafood. And unfortunately, as a bunch of Americans, seafood wasn't our favorite. So I think we all left there a little underwhelmed. It was a fun experience.
Not so sure about okonomiyaki.
But we didn't really care for the taste of okonomiyaki. But then... you and I had it in Kamakura.
Yeah, we found that great place in Kamakura.
And we had it with pork, and then we had it with chicken. And
then I had it with
those are
seafood.
things that I like a little bit better. I'm just not... the seafood wasn't my cup of tea, but I think that you can find something that you like. Because every okonomiyaki restaurant, you make your own, or you order it, and
they'll do it right in front of you.
They'll do it right in front of you, so they'll make it to your specifications anyway. But what's really fun at most of them, like I suggest that you try and find one that you make on your own. Because even though you don't know how to do it, nobody does. They'll help you. They'll come over. I just love...
they'll tell you when it's time to flip. They'll tell you when it's time to take it off. They'll tell you to put this
They'll
sauce
tell you how to stir it
sauce.
better, or, oh, no, don't put the sauce on in one big spoonful, but put it in this pattern, as you squeeze the bottle. Mm-hmm. And you can put your... pickled ginger on there, or you can pick whatever sauces you want to put on there. And it's just really, really, really delicious. And I just love that they help you. It's such a cultural experience. I love going to places where the taste is awesome, but the experience is priceless. You know what I mean? And that's what okonomiyaki is.
Yeah, and we really became good friends with the Kamakura
We did.
family that ran that place.
It's right near the Hasidera Temple.
Yeah, and
in Kamakura.
and down from the Big Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also, because you're cooking it on a large griddle on the table, one type of soba noodles that we didn't talk about was yakisoba.
Right.
So you could also do yakisoba at that restaurant, which is just a fried soba noodle. Also delicious.
Yeah. I mean, really, what's not delicious of Japanese food?
Okay, but number 8 is, I know I've said that was my favorite. This is my favorite. Number 8.
No, right. Tonkatsu is really Jim's favorite.
Tonkatsu. I would go out of my way for a good tonkatsu. In fact, we often
I was going to say, in fact.
the best. Well, okay. First of all, tonkatsu is. We kind of mentioned it with the cocoa curry. It is a breaded and
cutlet.
fried pork cutlet, and like anything else in Japan, when a Japanese chef or a Japanese farmer or anybody decides to do something, they're going to go to any length necessary to do it the best that they can. So, and that extends to the pork, just like a Wagyu beef. So when you get a good tonkatsu restaurant, they're sourcing their pork from who they think is the best source around. So you're going to get a delicious, tender, juicy piece of pork in a very crispy, fried panko crumb breading. And it's just delicious. But,
and it's served over shredded cabbage, always.
Yeah, served with a shredded cabbage with a nice sesame dressing on top. Ooh, I love that.
Oh, but so here again, the one time we had it that we fell in love with it. Like, we can tell you where and when that was because of the experience.
Yeah.
Because you walk into the restaurant, and partially it's because of the hospitality of these particular restaurateurs, but also it's just the experience of the food. So in this case,
the sounds and the smells.
Yeah, we were on our way to Matsumoto, which we just mentioned is not far from Minowa.
Spent the night in Suwa.
And we spent the night in this town called Suwa. And so we got there, I think it was after 7. All we wanted to do was eat and go to bed so we could get up the next morning.
This particular tonkatsu restaurant is built in I don't think it's a repurposed farmhouse. It was built to be a replica of an old, very old Japanese farmhouse. So with the thatched roof, and it's got a water mill out front.
It's cute. You would want to go
there. But inside
there.
is modern and just beautiful. And so you go in and comfortable. And so you go in and you order. There's not a lot of choice on the menu. You're either going to get a set, or you're just going to get a tonkatsu and cabbage, or there was a few fish items you could get.
And extensions. There's always extensions.
But really the most exciting thing about the tonkatsu for me is the sauce.
And in this particular restaurant, as in many of the restaurants, you make your own.
Yeah, you're going to get a small bowl that's ridged on the inside and a like a pestle, a mortar and pestle type setup. And in the bowl is going to be some sesame seeds. So you crush the sesame seeds and you just release the smell and all that aroma. And then you add to that a garlic sauce and a sweet, almost like a barbecue sauce. And you can mix it to your taste. And then as you're eating the tonkatsu, you dip it into the sauce. And again, rest it on your rice. And eat the tonkatsu, eat the rice with the sauce and the drippings on it. Delicious. They opened up a tonkatsu restaurant in Kamakura about 6 months before we left. And it was as good as the one in Suwa. It was delicious. Yeah. I'd send everybody there.
Well, because you have to go to Kamakura.
You have to go to Kamakura. And it's right outside the station. It's a block away from the station. And their food is delicious. And I think, if anything, they even have better pork than the one in Suwa. Perhaps.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we love them both. But the one in Suwa has our heart for the nostalgia piece of it. Okay, so our 9th thing that we want to talk about is something that every school child has practically every day. It's called onigiri. And onigiri is basically a rice cake. And on the outside of the rice cake, it has the seaweed wrap. And you can get them plain or just salted, but typically there's these little colored stickers on each of them that tell you what's inside. Some are pictures, so that makes it easy.
Right.
And some are in katakana, so if you can read katakana, that's good. And some are even in English, which of course makes it even that much easier. My two favorites are the salmon and the tuna. Actually, tuna outbids the salmon. I don't know what it is about those things, but I could eat those things.
You do like them.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
I
now
love
wait a
them.
minute. You call it a rice cake.
Yeah.
But really it's just cooked rice that's formed into
A triangle.
a triangle.
Yeah, it's not a rice cake like what do
Like
we
we would
call
think
rice
of
thing?
a rice cake that's crispy.
Oh yeah, no, this is
No,
not crispy.
it's soft rice, perfectly cooked, and then stuffed with tuna, salmon.
Or some of the things that I don't particularly care about.
Salted pickled
plum, umeboshi, or you could get fish
roe.
roe, or you could get different kinds of fish.
I think it's all good, but I would agree with you. Tuna is my favorite too.
It's just easy, and they're so cheap. I mean, they're like,
Cheap and filling.
at best, they're 160 yen.
They're like the perfect snack food for when you're walking around Tokyo and you're in between meals, or you want to extend your time between meals, but you need something. Stop in at any convenience store, any kombi, and you're going to find a wide variety or wide range of choices.
In some places, they'll have different kinds. So they'll have different levels of them. They'll have a really cheap one, which is usually right around 100 yen or even a little bit less. And then they'll have a little bit higher quality one. And I always go for that little higher quality one if it's available, because the ingredients are just that much better. I can't believe how much better it is. We're talking maybe 40 cents difference in price, and yet I feel like it's a huge difference in quality. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And it's still cheap. So you could easily eat it for breakfast, eat it for a snack before you go to bed, make sure the kids are not hungry, eat it there. There's lots of things to eat at kombis or kombinis.
Yeah, they can really be your friend.
The convenience store that will really be your friend. But all the other stuff, not all the other stuff, much of the other stuff you can get pretty much anywhere. These, I think, are so Japanese and so something that you just really want to make sure that you've tried. And try it early on in your trip. Because if you're getting on a train or if you're hiking somewhere and you just want to have something in your backpack just to be...
It's a good thing to have.
It's a really good thing to put in there, but you want to make sure you get one you like. So don't go to Japan without trying onigiri. Okay, so number 10. Number 10 is something that you expected.
It's so Japanese. And you've probably been wondering why we haven't mentioned it before now. But it's sushi. And you have to eat sushi in Japan. If you like it in the States...
You'll love it.
You'll love it in Japan. If you don't like it in the States, give
You'll
it a try.
You'll still love it in Japan.
It's the same, but better. And, you could do a whole podcast about sushi.
And maybe we will sometime.
Yeah.
But basically for the purposes of this podcast is you can get sushi kind of like you can with some of the other ingredients, where you can get a very cheap sushi, like at the Sushi Go Rounds, or the Shinkansen sushi, where the train brings it to you
on a conveyor
belt. Or you can go to a medium sushi, where it's a small restaurant, but they're still making it for by hand for you. But these are not master sushi chefs; they're just chefs that are either on their way to being masters, or
you can go into the master sushi restaurants,
or you can go into the ultra expensive
best ingredients, freshest fish. And it's, again, there you're sitting at the counter and the sushi chefs are behind the counter and they're making it to order.
Where you can get a little vestige of this without actually paying such exorbitant prices as you would at a real master sushi restaurant would be at the fish market. Even though they've closed down the fish market at what's the name of that? Tsukiji. Even though they've closed down Tsukiji Fish Market, the place where they made the sushi and the outer market is still there.
And
so
that
you
is
can
definitely
go
some of
there.
the best sushi.
And even at the
Tokyo.
new one. You can get sushi there. So that's really fresh stuff, and it's by some sushi masters. But you're not paying the prices if you were going to go to a downtown Tokyo sushi masters restaurant where, honestly, you might as well mortgage your house.
There's also
if you
a
want to do
very, very good sushi restaurant with masters in the Tokyo airport. In between, there's once you go through security, there's a small sushi right in between terminals, and that's so good. Okay, so you go into a sushi restaurant in Japan, and it can be very confusing at first.
It depends.
There are a lot of different types of restaurants, and there's a lot of different types of ordering sushi. The easiest by far, and probably the ones to start with, are a conveyor belt sushi, where you're going to get a table, sit down, and the sushi is going to be parading by you on a conveyor belt. And it's on little plates with usually two pieces of sushi on each plate, and the plates are color-coded. So you have to keep track of how much each plate costs based on its color. And the signs are posted everywhere, so you're going to know what you're getting and how much it's going to cost. And you just pick up a plate, and you eat those, and you pick up another plate, and you eat those, and pretty soon you've got a stack of 11 plates in front of you, and you're feeling good. So that's the easiest way.
But you do have to still order your drinks. Some things like green tea is usually free.
Usually free for green tea, yeah. And so you put a little bit of soy sauce in a shallow dish with a little bit of wasabi if you want, and then you carefully dip your piece of sushi into that and plop it in your mouth. Typically one bite is what you want to do. Sushi does not bite well.
You are not meant to bite your sushi. You're meant to put it in your mouth
and eat it. It's a little big. If you've got a small mouth, then be careful. But usually it's very manageable. And it's just a delicious bite when you do that.
And if you have been eating sushi in the United States where you have all these dragon rolls and things...
California rolls.
Those are really not...
Those aren't very Japanese.
Japanese sushi. Those are more Korean sushi.
Right.
So you're going to have a different kind of sushi.
So you may not see what you're familiar with there.
Yeah.
But
try it.
A lot of places are, I think, adding more rolls. You were saying and
you
more
also
commonly.
Don't have to eat everything raw. They have cooked chicken. They have
fried
cooked shrimp. They have cooked eel and different ones are cooked.
Seared tuna.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of
seared
options.
sake.
You can
salmon.
usually get fried chicken, or did you say that?
I did, but that's okay. You can get all kinds of stuff. So try it.
That's number 10.
What's really, really fun though is the Shinkansen or the kid sushi really places, kind of like Kura Sushi, or what was the one there in Yokosuka? I don't know. But they're meant for bringing the family, and they have big, huge tables, and you order with an iPad up over the conveyor belt if the conveyor belt's not already bringing you what you want. And it's really fun because they make it a game too. So you order and then ding, 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 you get a prize.
And it's all very cute in Japanese.
Yeah, and they actually have been making their way to the United States. There's quite a few of the ones called Kura Sushi in the States. They're all over California. But really, they have them in Texas. There's one up in Seattle, Chicago, a couple along the East Coast, one in Miami, one in New York. So you can start to experience that. If you're around any of those places, you can start to experience it before you go to Japan.
Experience.
But you really should try it in Japan as well because it's tons of fun. Okay, so we understand. We understand that it's hard to get to Japan right now, and it might still be a few months before it's really opened up, or even, we don't even know.
We don't want to go past that, but you don't know.
You just never know how this whole pandemic thing is going. But regardless of when you go to Japan, you can't go there without trying these 10 foods. And you also might want to just try them before you go to Japan. If you can find them in your local area, they're all great things to try, and then it kind of gives you a better, idea of what it is when you get there. Yeah, experience a little bit of Japanese food culture and gambate.
Yeah, and the good news is that here in the States, you can find most of this stuff. And more Japanese chains are opening outlets in the U.S. So give it a try.
Thanks for joining us as Treats and Eats, where we want to encourage you to savor the adventure. We'd love for you to come to our website, Reflections en Route, and sign up for our newsletter. That way you'll never miss a podcast or a blog post.
Ciao for now.